Hello, everyone. So it is 1 o'clock and I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jenna Harbour. I am a licensed clinical social worker and I'm also a behavior therapist. A few housekeeping things for the CEs. Please give us 14 days to get those out. A few you have asked in the chat. Your cameras are off and you are muted. If there are questions, please use the chat box function and I will be stopping intermittently for questions. So put them in there and I'll get to them when I can. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. So today is building a therapeutic environment or building therapeutic environments. So what does that entail, right? What are the things that we need to do to have our clients, our staff, everybody within agencies thrive? So a therapeutic environment is an environment that is supportive to everyone who's there, people who live there, the families around us, the staff, anybody who you can possibly think that will be in an agency. That is what a therapeutic environment is going to be best for. So we break it down into 3 different spaces. We have physical space, social spaces, and psychological spaces. And we will go in depth on all 3 of those throughout the presentation. So whenever we think about what's a therapeutic environment, safety is number 1. We have to think about, are the people safe? Do they feel safe? What can we do to make them safe? It should always be one of our first and foremost priorities, because with that and meeting basic needs, that is the basis of a therapeutic environment. So it also recognizes that people with disabilities, or really every person, are influenced by their surroundings and do better with environments that are individualized, flexible, and designed to support the differing functional levels and needs or care of that person. This also goes with, office spaces, or doctor's offices, homes, everything. Is it going to be therapeutic to the person? Is it warm? Is it welcoming? So it also maintains a positive and healthy physical environment, because so many people actually rely on environmental cues to help support them physically, cognitively, and emotionally. So anything that is unfamiliar, chaotic, or disorganized is going to be stressful and cause anxiety. It could also cause disorientation or contribute to behavioral problems when we're specifically talking about the developmental disability population. So whenever we think of a therapeutic environment, we should ask ourselves, first and foremost, are we safe? Do you feel safe in every sense of the word? Is the home in a location that makes us feel safe? Is there things around us that don't make us feel safe? Is it cluttered? Is it too warm? All these things that we have to take into account. So we also want to reduce those environmental stressors if we've identified that there are some, because that, as it says, can make us feel disorganized or have anxiety or have disorientation. So we want to enable the people that we serve, or the people that are in our agencies that are working there, to feel supported and have some level of control or sense of control. And that leads us to really think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So here it is. And if we're meeting their needs there at the bottom, like air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction. Those are the things that we, on a base level, we have to meet. And then safety. So those are the things a therapeutic environment are going to hit upon. Okay, so who is helped by a therapeutic environment? And pretty much everybody can be helped by a therapeutic environment. So our clients will be better supported. Our staff will feel more welcome. Admin will want to work there. The community may even want to have group homes within them. The resources, you won't feel as intrusive whenever we need to call upon the people in extreme situations. And then just the agency as a whole is going to feel better. So because there's a therapeutic environment, or we work on building a therapeutic environment, it's going to change the culture around it, right? So people will want to work there. It won't be as difficult to get people hired. Maybe the staff turnover will be less. People will just feel more taken care of, and maybe they will be more apt to work harder for us, or the clients will want to stay there and make that their long-term home. With the community piece too, I have heard so many things over the years of working in different locations that there are times neighbors do not want group homes or the type of homes that I work in to be in their community. They hate it. Maybe they are complaining because there's noise levels or people are in their yard, XYZ, whatever you can think of, I probably heard it. So we want to get the community to feel like this is such a really necessary resource and we love having it around. So with this, we will build outreach and then just really make sure people know it exists and love it being there. So we just make our agencies more desirable for everyone. Okay. So whenever we think of the people who have ID or DD in our populations, we have to recognize what we can do or have that they don't, because it's more of a restrictive setting. So go ahead and drop in the chat some items that maybe we get to do in our free time, or the things that we can do on a weekend that maybe people with disabilities can't, or that they can't do without permission or prior authorization, getting things set up. So what are things that you guys do or can do that maybe our clients can't? Go to church, going out to eat, hanging out with friends, just going for a walk, going to bars, driving around, going to the park, dating, shopping, seeing their family. Yep, cocktails at a trivia night. So many things. So how many of these things that you've listed, right, they can't do? Just about everything. Camping, nail salon. Some of these things, yeah, you can. Having another person overnight. So often I tell the people to make a list for themselves, and then we mark out all the things that we can do, but people with disabilities can't. So you have to think about, they need prior authorization, they need to set things up. Staff is probably always with them. So all of these things directly affect the therapeutic environment. If they do not feel in control, if they do not feel supported, if they can't do the things that they want to do or that are the most motivating, is it truly a therapeutic environment? No, probably not. So the ability to control the environment will directly contribute to clients and staff being more successful or having better outcomes. And many of those things that we've listed, like, they're probably not even an option ever. I don't know many of my clients that an agency would feel comfortable with bars, cocktails. Sometimes it's okay, but we also have to take into account what medications they're on and if that'll interact or how much can they have, right? So again, we really have to focus on the things that we are able to do that they can't. How do we build that back in so they have more power, more sense of control? So whenever we think of environments that we enter or we come into contact with, we have to think about, well, is the space set up where it feels welcoming? Do the people that you come into contact with listen? Do they care? Do the people who live there get to make it their own home? Do they get to, make the choice of where they're actually living? So many of our clients have the lack of skills, right? So they just don't have them in their repertoire. So those are the things like driving, maybe setting up their own doctor's appointments. Again, some clients have this, but some don't. So they have to go out of their way to get cars set up to take them or have a staff take them, and you have a limited window. So this limits everything they get to do, and they don't have that sense of freedom or control. So one of the biggest things I ask or talk about whenever it comes to environments or just clients in general when they have behavior is, did they pick to live there? Especially if I see a client eloping, right? And they had just moved. Is this something they picked? Was it the only option? Are there limited resources in the area? There are often maybe one or two agencies around where maybe your hometown is that they want to still reside in. Take into account with that too, is there more than one DT, right? Can they choose to go elsewhere? Did you try to get them into both and maybe one said no and their only option was this? We all have to think about the limited choices they have. That actually puts kind of a nail in our coffin of, are we actually being therapeutic? Are we doing best by them? Okay, so we also think safety, and you're going to see a theme throughout this, that safety is pretty much on like every slide or every other slide, because we truly have to talk about safety. And someone in the chat asked if you're all muted. Yes, the cameras are off, you are muted, and I don't think you can change that. I don't even think I can change that. So no problems with that. So back to the safety. Safety is going to be a common theme of making sure we feel safe, they feel safe, it's somewhere they want to be, and are they actually comfortable? And I don't mean comfortable in the sense of, you know, are you comfy, right? Or do you feel okay? I mean comfortable in every sense of the word. Do they have options? Do they feel like they have freedom? Did they get to pick the things in their rooms? Did they get to pick the house they're living in? All of those things. So again, we're going to talk about the three components, so the physical, the psychological, and the social, that have to be there or are all parts of a therapeutic environment. Because without all three parts, or if one's heavier than the other or something's lacking, you will probably still see some level of behavior or just unhappy staff and residents that live there. Okay, so with this too, I acknowledge there's a lot of subjectivity to this, and everything that is in this training is subjective. So it's valid to change it. You have to be flexible. You have to know who you're serving. So we want to maintain an environment that recognizes that people are influenced by their surroundings and do better with environments that are individualized, flexible, and designed to support those differing levels, right? So there are some questions we can ask to help that set up and get them in the idea of getting control. The other things that we have to consider is the immediate environment that they interact with daily. So like the bedrooms, the kitchens, you know, dining areas, living rooms. So some questions you can ask clients who are moving in or who have lived there to try to give some sense of control or freedom back is, what theme do you want your room? Can we paint? What do you want the paint to look like? Maybe there's something specific that you want to decorate the walls with. What's your ideal temperature? You know, I know that's going to differ from person to person. It's pretty evident pretty much everywhere you go. You know, doctor offices are cold. Some offices are very warm. Some group homes I walk into are like 80 degrees, where some are like chilly. This all will depend on the people, and maybe you can find a median that fits everybody or is okay. Another question should be like, what kind of activities should we schedule? What do those look like? What are the needs and wants of the people who live there? Again, you may have a really wide range. So you want to make sure that you're offering and picking things from a list that everyone has something they will enjoy. And then what kind of items should we have on hand? What kind of snacks? When do you like the snacks? Should we have blankets or pillows in the living rooms? Small things that can actually make a really big difference. Other ideas that I've seen or that are recommended could be things like resident councils, idea boxes, And that could be idea boxes for clients and for staff or for families or all three. Maybe polling the residents when you're trying to come up with something new or what kind of activities. And then also just like knowing history and those social histories, if we can, are really important because maybe the person did it a long time ago and can't really, pull that out of thin air for you when you ask what they'd like to do. Sometimes that's too hard and they need the options or you to offer something that you think, okay, this might be okay. With that too, we can also talk about lighting choices. So do I want a lamp? Do I want overhead? Are the lights that are in the houses very institutional? Is there a way we can get away from that or soften? What kind of artwork do you want to hang on your walls, right? So I'm sure we've all seen those really generic ones that hang on the walls. They're very pretty, but at the same time, it's not something that I would bet a teenage guy would pick, right? Maybe they would prefer, something with trucks, and that's the theme they would want to go with. So just even in common areas, adding pictures of the residents who live there, all within reason, but doing those things. Volumes of the TV, who's in control of the remotes, what do we watch? When, what's that look like? And then just menu selections for dinner or lunch and breakfast, or what can we have on hand that we all enjoy or that we can all work in. So again, those three components, we're going to talk about the social environment, the psychological environment, and the actual physical environment. So social, that's the staff, that's the interaction, body language, how we're spoken to, peers, what goes on in the house, what's offered to do. The psychological environment, what we say or how we're treated with the words. Are we being validated? Do people notice when we're going through mental health struggles? How do we get to express ourselves? And then the actual physical environment of what do the walls look like? What's the lighting choices? Are there pillows? Did I pick my bedding? Those types of things. So for the social environment, we have to think about physical closeness and space. How close are we standing? What kind of boundaries do we place? What kind of boundaries do the clients have with each other? So this is our role, our body language, how we treat our peers, the other staff we work with, the clients, everyone. If you walk into an agency, you can pretty much pick up a vibe of, okay, is this a place that's open and honest? Or is this going to be one of those weird ones, or you have to watch where you're standing and how you're talking? So interactions with our clients are the people who are in homes, DTs, etc. So do you seek people out when you arrive? Say hello, make a point, or do you walk in, go straight to your office or go straight to work and it's just another day and nobody could even recognize that you say hello or that you're even there? Are you saying goodbye or good night? Are you ready to just get off for the day and get out of the building? Or are you making sure that clients have some level of closure, that you're saying goodbye, when they'll be coming back, those types of things? Are we praising, or is it just a really negative environment where all I'm going to hear when I walk in is criticism or you're not doing it correctly? So we also want to talk about the things that they like. Oftentimes I hear staff talking amongst themselves and not to clients. Or if they're talking about clients, it may not be something that I would assume a client would like, or the client walks away because it's not a topic they want to talk about. And that's okay. Some level of this, again, is flexible and subjective. So one client might have, a tendency towards one thing that they super love and other clients might not, or they're just tired of hearing about it. We want to have a culture of gratitude, that we're saying please and thank you and actually using that sugar or manners no matter who we're speaking with. So when we talk about actually interacting or prompting clients to take showers or take their medication or physically assisting the ones that need it, Are we preparing them for touch? Are we walking up behind people without letting them know you're there? Because, well, maybe you'd think they heard you walking up, or, you know, it's not a big deal. But really thinking about that type of stuff. Do we knock when we walk into a client's bedroom? Every time, no matter what. Do we let them know that our presence is there? Do we walk in their rooms whenever they're not in their room because we have things to do and we have jobs to do? Are we really paying attention to how cognizant we are of boundaries or what that should look like? I currently have a client right now who doesn't want anybody in his room when he's not in his room, which makes sense. But if we know a person's trauma, which we'll talk about in a little bit, we know more of why it is that he is like that, right? So making sure we're not touching people without warning, that we're keeping a normal distance, that we're not close talking, that we're not making people uncomfortable. If we're really tall, not being overbearing. And I know that's something that, you know, tall people have to think about. I'm short, so I don't. Are we explaining things on top of that for people who may be nonverbal, hard of hearing, have issues with sight? Are we still explaining what we're doing and preparing them for changes or things that we're going to do? Because just because they have a disability, maybe because it's normal and you think it doesn't matter, we still need to explain. They're still a human being. We should still be saying, hey, now it's time to do this. And I may be, you know, my hands may be cold when I touch it. Like those types of things actually need to be considered when we're talking about a therapeutic environment. We also will talk about the activities that are offered. Do we have groups throughout the house or like cliques that like to hang out? Are there things that they can actually do? Are we welcoming? Do we promote inclusivity? Are some staff maybe in a smaller town? I come from a small town, right? So are we actually being welcoming of the people who come from different backgrounds? Maybe that we don't understand, and that's okay. But are we welcoming them, or are we putting up walls and acting differently? Are we offering to engage in things that everyone likes, or taking turns with what we watch, what we're eating, those types of things? If we don't know how to engage, or maybe they're just newer, are we asking them to teach us how to do something, or teach us something they're interested in or really, really good at? That's a wonderful way to build a therapeutic environment. Are we getting involved in activities that the person engages when they're on their own time? Not just what we offer in the house, but that they may like. We've had clients in the past who loved to put together model cars. Not something that would be up my alley, but it was something he enjoyed and often would like to do with another person, but no one did. And he didn't feel very welcome in the house, bevy of issues, but he wanted to put cars together. So he wanted someone to engage in those things, but no one ever did. But I bet if someone just took the time to help him with that, he would have loved it. And then sometimes it could just be simple as giving them one-to-one time occasionally, or, you know, once a day at a certain time, just to make sure you're building that rapport. They're feeling heard, they're feeling listened to. With all this too, when we talk about social environments, we also need to pay attention to what we look like and what we walk in wearing. Are we wearing tons of jewelry? Do we like our perfume and we're a little overbearing? Or does a client in the house really love their Axe body spray and it's wonderful for them, but maybe overbearing for other people who have more issues with, you know, sensory things? Okay, so when we talk about a therapeutic environment, we have to talk about trauma. And there's often a trauma checklist that I want you guys to be aware of, that I often get aware of whenever I'm engaged with a client or meeting a new client for the first time. So is there abuse or neglect in their background? And that could be physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, or even financial abuse. Was there any kind of personal or familial drug or alcohol use to an extreme? Do they have untreated mental illness? Did someone in the family have untreated mental illness? What kind of prenatal care did they receive? Did they experience any kind of domestic violence? Did they watch that? Did they bounce around from foster homes or different placements? Have they experienced a major death or loss? And the reason I talk about trauma so much, one, it's like one of my passions. It's something that I really got into and learned a lot about when I was in college. But two is when we interact with any person, we need to be cognizant that everyone is going through something, whether we recognize it or not, whether they talk about it or not, everyone has something. So we have to take into account how not only that affects their behavior, but how it may affect the places that they live or work. I have a client currently that won't shower or wouldn't shower, right? They just thought he was being really obstinate and angry. And of course not, I'm a teenage boy. I'm not going to shower. I'm going to wear the same clothes every day. However, whenever I got in and started talking to him, I learned that he's not showering because he experienced a significant amount of sexual abuse in his history. And he didn't feel comfortable showering in the men's restroom and with a door that had no lock. How easy would it have been to build that rapport, get to know him, and then find a different solution? They made it easier to where he could shower in a different one that had a lock. Guess who showers every day? You know, knowing the trauma to build that therapeutic rapport and that environment goes a really long way. Also with this, we'll talk about safety. Do they feel safe? Based on their trauma history, is it safe to be where they're currently at? Do they feel safe to be themselves, keep the things that they want? Are they going to hoard because they never know, or that's their learned history of, I never know what I can use or what will be useful, so I just keep it all. And I also here will talk about the ACEs questionnaire, and that's the adverse childhood experience. So you should have got in a packet emailed out 2 ACEs questionnaires. And often whenever I have a client, that's what I run through in my head of, okay, how high is their ACE score? Or, you know, I ask people just to be cognizant of their own. So there's usually 10 questions. And so you can have an ACE score from 0 to 10. And those questions are, did a parent or other adult in the household often swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you? Or did they act in a way that made you afraid that you might be physically hurt? If one of those resonates, then you put a point down. Number 2 is, did a parent or other adult in the household often push, grab, slap, throw something at you? Or ever hit you so hard that marks were left or you were injured? If you resonate with that one, you put a 1. Did an adult or a person at least 5 years older than you ever touch or fondle you, or have you touch their body in a sexual way? Or attempt to have oral, anal, or vaginal intercourse with you? Number 4, did you often feel that no one in your family loved you or thought you were special or important? Or your family didn't look out for each other, feel close or to each other, or support each other? 5, did you often feel that you didn't have enough to eat, had to wear dirty clothes, or had no one to protect you? Or were your parents too drunk or high to take care of you, take you to doctors if you needed it? 6, were your parents ever separated or divorced? Pretty much, I would say like 80% of our clientele has some level of divorce, separation within that. 7, were any of your parents or other adult caregivers, did they often get pushed, grabbed, slapped, or had something thrown at them? Or sometimes or often kicked, bitten, hit with a fist, or hit with something hard? Or ever repeatedly hit, over at least a few minutes or threatened with a gun or a knife. 8, did you live with anyone who was a problem drinker, who was alcoholic, or who was on street drugs? Number 9, was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did a household member attempt suicide? And number 10, did a household member ever go to prison? And then there's another one within that is more geared towards adults. They're pretty much the same, but it's easier to do. And I would encourage you to actually fill out an ACEs for yourself, just to know where you're at and what kind of trauma background you bring into every single day of work or interacting with clients who also have trauma, just so you're cognizant of how that lens affects how you treat other people. So how do we approach? We're going to know their trauma. If you don't know, then ask. Ask to read a social story. Build rapport with them enough that they eventually report it to you. Or if they can't do that, just building that rapport where they feel safe that if anything ever does happen, they can tell you. So you're building that great relationship, you're building rapport. You're going to always announce your presence by knocking, not touching them before they know that you're there. Whenever you enter a room or see them, you say hello, you smile, you use please and thank you. And then we're going to set ourselves up for success by checking as much of our personal stuff that we can at the door. We are now in their home. I know it's your workplace. However, it's their home. They shouldn't be hearing about your personal drama. We want to be calm. We want to be happy. We want to act like we want to be there. So we can't always expect the same of our clients, which is pretty hard because, that give and take, but we still have to be this person because we are far more flexible than any of our clients ever thought about being. We actually, in the past, have had clients that if anybody would approach from behind, it was an immediate behavior, physical aggression, because she was sexually abused. And each and every time it was somebody who walked up behind her, or that she didn't know was there, or that they were sneaky and that's how it happened. But knowing her trauma and approaching her from the front where she can see you, making their presence known, made the biggest difference and reduced that behavior drastically. So again, knowing their trauma, knowing how to approach in a safe way is going to help you tremendously. So there is a 5-1 rule, which means that for any negative interaction, one negative interaction, you need 5, at least 5 positive interactions just to get back on track, to negate the one. And we're all human. Everybody has some level of behavior. So sometimes we do have to have some level of reprimand, or we do things that we have to do within the rights of the job. Just keep it in mind, any negative interaction, you will be making up for it. So it's going to be far easier to have positive interactions to try to make up for the negative. So now we're going to talk about the psychological environments. Before I jump into that, is there any questions on social environments or what that looks like or how we should approach? Okay, so you should get printouts from the session. I believe they were sent out beforehand, but if they weren't, I do believe you can email Anna and she can get them to you. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's questions. Where do we find scores and what they mean for ACEs? So the scores for the ACEs, out of the 10, however many you marked, that's your score. So if I went through the 10 questions and I marked 3, my ACE score is 3. There should usually be a like scorer or like what that means, but what that really means is anybody who has an ACE score that is above, I believe 3, it could be 6, I can't remember off the top of my head, but at a certain level, that means you're at risk for far more things. And the ACEs was actually made because of health outcomes. So ACEs score can predict or give a really good percentage of what kind of health outcomes you will have as an adult. So psychological environments. So we want to set the scene, or we as staff have to set the scene for all interactions. So again, do your clients feel safe and supported? Are they struggling with a mental health issue, whether identified or not? I often have to label unrecognized feelings whenever I work with clients, just because I can see them, or when they talk to me, we maybe talk about things that they don't talk about with staff in the house. But a big one that I see is when a person has bipolar or any kind of mania or depression, we are not picking up on what mania looks like for them, what depression looks like for them, and how to support them within that. So knowing what resources are around, or what we can link them to, or what we do in a situation when they're experiencing that mental health crisis is really important for them to be supported. Again, we set the scene, we need to be happy, we need to engage, and being present. So what you say must always communicate respect and dignity, because again, if we do not validate, or we're very invalidating, or don't listen to what people say, they're more likely not to come to us. We have to be respectful, and we have to treat them with dignity, because every person is worthy, no matter what they've had in their history. So within that, we are respectful. Yes, this is a job. Yes, we serve clients, but we are working within their homes. And without them, we don't have jobs. So if you can't treat them well, I often say, then what's the point? Why are you here? And oftentimes that isn't the same with other jobs, because there's plenty of jobs that don't work with, interaction face-to-face, full-on care. So with that too, we have to talk to admin staff, or, the upper management about getting what you pay for, and making sure that the people who are working for you also feel safe, secure, and supported. Because if they don't, then how can we expect them to care for another person? We are not meeting their basic needs, or maybe their basic needs aren't being met outside of work because they're not being paid a livable wage. We also want to pay attention to our vocal qualities and body language. So what's our tone? What's our volume? I am a type of person that talks very fast, and my voice travels. So even if I think I'm speaking quietly, I may not be, right? So when I work with clients, I try to find a secure, private location, because my voice carries, and I don't need to accidentally tell another person or peer someone's trauma without their consent. We talk about our facial expressions. Some people can hide it really well, other people can't. I am a type of person who facial expressions are all over my face. I have a real hard time keeping in what I'm feeling. Open book, right? Masks help me tremendously, especially when I may hear some crazy statement that I'm like, oh, okay, like that was just said. Rate of speech, again, making sure we're talking slow enough, giving clients enough time to process. And then respect is being communicated throughout all communication, that we're not coming up arms crossed, that we're not immediately setting demands, right? So validation is the act of confirming what another person finds to be accurate, logical, and authentic. We do not have to agree to validate. You are communicating acceptance of the individual in a functional way. And we can always validate a person or find something to validate within the negative. Let them know that any kind of behavior or the behavior that's happening may make sense under the current circumstances. We don't have to agree. And then knowing the person's history again is super helpful because it can explain why they have a reaction in a certain way. So validation isn't just like compliments or letting the person know that, you know, you're happy to see them or being like, "Ooh, good job." That's part of it. But it's also putting yourself in their shoes, trying to feel what they feel, to be able to say something as simple as, "Darn, that sucks." That is still validation. Something that I have noticed throughout the years is women are far better at validation than men are. I'm not saying all men aren't great at it. However, they're fixers, right? There's a lot of different ways we invalidate without us realizing it. So we just need to be aware of what our interactions and the words that we're saying is putting out, or how it sets us up for success or for failure. So invalidation and the environments that invalidate. This is continual communication to the individual that their responses are incorrect, inaccurate, faulty, inappropriate, or otherwise invalid. So an invalidating environment actually produces these emotional displays that so many of our clients have. It could be that communication efforts stop because the people they are speaking to are inconsistent. And then sometimes if you are invalidated enough, it can actually make the person feel ill, get sick, or just feel unheard, and then they stop telling. And whenever we stop telling people, that's when more problems happen. So emotions are also a big piece of this. So we always remember that people can't help the way they feel. An emotional reaction is an emotional reaction for a reason, right? You can't help it if you hurt my feelings. You don't get to say that you didn't mean to, right? Like, you can not mean to, but if I feel some type of way, I still feel some type of way about it. So invalidating environments can make people feel they are wrong for feeling a certain way. In fact, if that's the case, they beat themselves up about it. It could cause a whole nother behavior. Communication of private events may not actually happen if you're constantly invalidated as well. And then, like I was saying, that stress can cause a person's immune system to be suppressed and then put a damper on the resources that impede recovery and healing. So you being invalidating can actually make a person's health worse. So we want to learn how to make appropriate requests or listen to requests that are appropriate and start meeting those unmet needs and validating. Because oftentimes those unmet needs are seen through maladaptive behaviors because it's the one way they know how to get their needs met or noticed. So other ways that we invalidate, so not just that fixing, but you can start blaming other people. And this doesn't mean like maybe even blaming clients, but that happens. This could be blaming it on another staff person, or there being internal struggles between shifts and clients overhearing that, despite us thinking we're doing a good job of not letting them know. It could be hovering, it could be judging, it could be denying things happened. It could be minimizing, such as, "Oh, it's not that bad." These are also nonverbal things that invalidate. If someone rolls their eyes, sorry, they're testing the fire alarms. I'm going to say go ahead and take a break. Oh, now, of course, now they're stopping. All right. So real fast, the ways we invalidate, right? So that the nonverbal invalidation, like if I'm not actually in tune or paying attention to what you're saying, that is actually invalidating. If I'm going to pull out my phone when you've decided to talk to me, that's also invalidating. I need full contact, full eye contact and paying attention. A really good video is, it's not about the nail, it's quick. So I'm actually going to pull that up for us. Oh, hold on. Of course, I need to share a sound.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't...
Try to see things my way. Do I have to keep on?
So again, sometimes all people want is just to be heard. So validation, how do we validate, right? So again, I'm going back to you, Shu. I should have remembered these are right next to each other. Hold on. Go back. This one's really long, but I recommend go ahead and watch it in full whenever you have more time. But I will watch the first few minutes.
To get validated.
You are awesome.
Excuse me?
You have an amazing face. You've got powerful features, man. Anyone ever tell you that?
No.
And listen, you look a little down. And it may seem like sometimes people don't understand you. But someday, man, someday, people are gonna see you for what you really are.
You really think so?
Absolutely. You are great.
Need a validation, please?
You are great, ma'am. You have amazing cheekbones.
Really?
Sir, yes. We have a situation.
Where?
Oh my gosh. 6 months.
What the hell's going on?
You've been through it. You know. You've had so much life experience that other people don't appreciate, but you.
So again, you know, small things can go a really, really long way. And that seems silly or exaggerated or, you know, based on looks at certain parts, but certain small things like that can make the biggest difference in everyone's day, right? I was talking with my boss before this about some of the aggressive validation that some TikTok stars do. Like they have a validation cafe or something. I can't even remember what it is. And of course, what a millennial of me talking about TikTok. But it's hilarious because they walk around or drive around on the street and then like aggressively, but like very kindly compliment and change people's days. And like the amount of like just the way people light up and change is just amazing. And it's small things like just being like, hey, your outfit looks really awesome today. And that could change a whole person's day. And then let me reshare because there's one more video that I am going to put up, and it's about empathy. And it's something that we all need to have or think about whenever we do things, because empathy is a big part of validation. And it's by one of like my favorite people ever, Brene Brown. So give me 1 second and I will reshare that.
So what is empathy and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So yeah, the big piece of validation, all of it is really putting yourself in their shoes and making that connection, because we super love, or we need that connection, because we won't be able to actually put ourselves on their level, build rapport, get them to trust us or feel safe without it, right? And yes, as Anna said, we can include those links in the CEs. So sorry, yeah, they are really tiny on the slides. So let me reshare. Okay, so once we've talked about empathy and we're validating, we have to talk about the ways we can give power and control back to individuals, because this is a huge piece of making sure that we are actually feeling or letting them feel in control or feeling safe. So the ability to control an environment directly contributes to more successful outcomes. If we feel like we have some say in anything, then this is going to give us back power or make us feel like we're heard, which will then turn into less struggles. So all of this control actually extends from privacy to what the lights in the room are, what artworks are on the walls, to the meals being provided, most of those things that we mentioned before. We also need to avoid power struggles, and giving a sense of control back is going to eliminate those power struggles, right? It's not supposed to be, no, it's my way. No, it's my way. Because guess what? In the long run, clients win because they are literally our job. They find ways to get back at us. Even if it's not, what they want, they're going to cause a problem or have a behavior somewhere else that actually takes time away from the thing that we need to do. So we want to offer choices, not demands. We sidestep arguments. We don't pick up that other end of the rope. We say things like, I will be here when you're ready, or these are your choices. Let me know when you choose. We set up physical spaces to make it feel more like a home, or that they've had choices in what's inside their actual house. And then we approach them as discussed in those in the social environments. We know their trauma. We're saying please and thank you. We're knocking whenever we go into their rooms, because what they are hearing, what they are being taught is that if we don't do this, is that they're not important. So their responses are inaccurate, they're faulty, they're wrong. Another piece of that, I think that I have even been guilty within the last year and a half, is that silver lining, right? Because we're all kind of in that deep dark hole, right? Because the pandemic, whatever you believe, whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through, it's tough. Resiliency is low. So we're trying to make it feel better. We're trying to make other people feel better. Maybe we're uncomfortable, so we want to leave the situation, and we try to do that silver lining. And it's not helpful to anyone. It's really invalidating. So even though it comes from a place that may be, feeling bad or wanting to help, it's actually better off just to avoid it completely. So the relationships we have with other people, any person, is really, really important. So rapport should always be one of our priorities, making sure that clients know we're there for them, because the better relationship we have with the people we serve, the more effective we are at providing support. And then them coming to us with problems or needing to help problem solving, or them just coming to us in the good times that they want to share. If we know them well and they trust us, things are caught faster, or maybe we've built the rapport so well that I know whenever I'm seeing certain precursor behaviors, it means that so-and-so has an ear infection, or that, hey, maybe I need to rule out a UTI, right? So taking the time to talk to them, learning these things, is actually going to benefit everybody in the long run. It is also going to be easier to take difficult statements or validate those difficult statements when they are said, because we are all human. We all have bad days. We all have moments that we aren't proud of, and we make comments that we probably aren't proud of either. Our clients are no different. So I'm sure many of you have heard things like, I hate your cooking. If you don't give me that, I will hit you. Day programs for losers, or this house sucks. A bevy of things that are really hard statements to hear, or are really hard not to take personally. But when we have a better relationship, we practice validation, it is so much easier to deal with all of that. Relationships are really the basis of everything that we do. So I always was joking. I'm like, I have so many examples in my notes that I'm like, I don't know where I got that, right? So the really big example that resonated with me is that I think it was a podcast I was listening to. You know, the janitor didn't really have any friends, and you know, he's there to do his job. He cleans up. The teachers didn't really talk to him, but there was one teacher that took the time out of every single morning to stop at the gate and have coffee with him, chat just a little bit. And he didn't realize how big of a difference that was making in that person's life until he was running late one day and needed to come in and couldn't stop for his 5 minutes to talk to the janitor. And then the janitor actually comes to him, sits down in their classroom, and just has coffee with him there, and actually thanks him for his friendship and how much those 5 minutes every morning has made a difference in his life. So even if we think it's small, even if we think it's insignificant, do the small things. It doesn't take us very long in the long run. With all this too, I recognize staff are part of our environments. Therefore, to build a therapeutic environment, we have to have staff on board. We have to have buy-in. So often we need proper staffing levels. Guess what? Does anybody have a proper staffing level right now? If you do, wonderful. But there are so many places everywhere, not just human services, that are short staffed, that the staff turnover is super high, or that, you know, the quality of people that we are being forced to hire is not what we would want. Then we have to take into account how much does it cost us to hire, fire, retrain staff, train new staff, or in the long run, would it be better to retain staff and treat the staff we do have better? So knowing that, and knowing clients, or knowing the staff that we have, knowing their routines or what they need, being flexible, is also going to go a long way, because without staff, we don't have jobs, we don't have the business, right? Because who's going to help us take care of the people that we serve? So now we're going to talk about the actual physical environment of what things look like. So a therapeutic environment, it offers acceptance, empathetic understanding, unconditional positive regard, in which persons feel free to verbalize, consider thoughts, behaviors, and emotions, and make constructive changes to their attitudes and reactions. So no environment is actually neutral. You immediately have a reaction or a feeling about every place that you interact with. If walking up to a doctor's office or a store makes you feel uncomfortable, it's negative, right? So what should things look like? How should we set it up? What should the tone be? What do walking through the doors look like? Because we should realize, as soon as a person walks through those doors or gets to a parking lot, gets into a lobby, that it's impacting how they feel, or how they will react, how they perceive the experience, or if they will want to come back. So we obviously want to make our homes homier and the workshops desirable, and anywhere that the client will be, including office spaces, how do we make that better and more positive for them? Even if that means we bring things with us so they have a more positive experience while waiting for a doctor's office. Because studies have shown that our opinions and judgments start forming before you ever get to that building, right? It is on the road, it's in that parking lot. So we always want to put our best foot forward. So also, things do we want to think about, is the house really sterile, or does it look homey? Is it cluttered? Is it really busy and no one ever speaks to you? Or if you pick up your loved one, are they always running late? Or are they clean? Do they look well dressed? Do they have the things ready that you need? So all of those things are taking into effect as well. So maintaining a positive and healthy environment is important because people with disabilities are going to rely on that. Again, this is the same one as before. If it's not, it causes anxiety, disorientation, and contribute to those behavioral problems. So a lot of our behavior problems can be eliminated or reduced by the change in environment. And that could be change in staff or how staff approach. That could be actual physical environment, reducing noise, reducing lights. But all that included is that indoor changes, so like the actual environment and setup, have been shown to reduce those unwanted behaviors and also enhance a sense of well-being. This goes for all of our clients, but also it's been found to be super, super important for dementia patients or helpful to other people that have memory problems. So other things to consider when we're setting up homes. So several of these, again, they're flexible, they'll be subjective, and maybe we can't, tear down a house and rebuild to where it's exactly what we want. However, if there are small changes that can be made to make a home better, then these are some things to consider. So when you're thinking about building a group home, buying a group home, let's talk about location. Are there areas that people can go for privacy, right? Often there's not. Parking, is it easy to get there? Are there gonna be lots of parking spots? I'm a type of person that if I don't know the parking situation beforehand, I'm gonna have a lot of anxiety. If it's a hard parking situation, I'm never gonna wanna go back there. I hate parking. So then we need to talk about presentation. Is it clean? Does it look cluttered? What's it smell like? Are the people supportive when you walk in? Do they address you? Do they talk to you? What kind of smell and noise is going on? Is it warm and inviting? Do they have access to any kind of daylight? Is it easy to access based on the needs of a person? And then is there consistent expectations? Because we need to reduce those environmental stressors. We have to give positive distractions or things that they can engage in because it gives them that sense of control. Okay, so physical designs, the things that most often are found within research that makes a therapeutic environment is wide hallways, larger rooms, having paint colors that they've picked or that have been shown to be more calming. Like I wouldn't say go paint the whole house red because red is a color that is actually one that has been shown. It causes more aggression. Then decorations, what does artwork and the aesthetics look like? Is it calming? Are the lights too bright? Is there a sensory area? Are there natural settings around? Or are they just ideal to begin with? Or are they confusing or distracting? And then is there access to calming areas such as views of nature, gardens, calming rooms, like real music or pianos or drum sets, things that are accommodating to the needs or the wants of the people who live there. Okay, so the indoor designs that have been shown to reduce unwanted behavioral problems and include that sense of well-being are private spaces with private bathrooms. Most of the houses that I work in, no private bathrooms. In fact, you have roommates, right? So if there was an ideal setting, it would be private rooms with private bathrooms. Many places with different kinds of seats to sit, so not just one thing or not enough seating or, places where you have to sit super close. Couches are nice, chairs are nice. Like there should be a variety of things for all people of all varying levels of accessibility. Public spaces to congregate with easy accessibility that have semi-private or private spaces for visits. So even if you have a little nook or an office that can be used, personalization of all items and possessions, picking their bedding, picking the paint colors, picking things that get to be put on their walls, the clothes that go in their closets, all of those things. Televisions and access to computers, tablets, or phones. This is something that's becoming far more common of like phones, tablets, etc. And sometimes it's really hard to hold on to those things into group homes, or, you know, have very sturdy ones that will not get broken or lost or stolen. But those should all be options. Then cleanliness of rooms and no smelly odors, sunlight, good ventilation, anything that's dark or just like nooks and crannies that could become issues for individuals who are older, or memory problems, dementia, Alzheimer's, all of that. And then smaller centralized staffing areas. So there's some places that we go that the staff area is bigger than other places that clients have access to, right? Like, sure, I get it. You should have substations, you should have places that staff can go, but it shouldn't be bigger than anything that the clients have access to. And then specific spaces that queue for specific activities or behaviors to happen. Common areas that are of interest, that just kind of means always having activities available, things scheduled, maybe more than one thing going on. So if you're not a fan of this thing, you have this as an option. These are just some pictures overall that have been found for more institutional like settings or doctor's offices and such, that have better lighting, that are more welcoming, or that people rated as more therapeutic. So having flexible seating, chairs that look nice, fireplace. I get why fireplaces are not ideal for group homes, but like this one, there's more of like the blue lighting. It's softer, it's not as harsh. Okay, so actual seating, right? So we want movable furniture that has like pillows and throws, or things that aren't going to be off-putting to not only our clients, but family members or other people who come to visit. Lots of choices and textures, right? I get it why there's a need for a certain type of seating. Obviously, that's why they sell those types of things, or things that are easily wiped down. But we have to consider, are those things actually comfortable? Will the people who live there want to sit on them? And then types of furniture or seating that will endure long times, or use over and over. And then just how easy is it to sit in? So when we think about lighting, things that are therapeutic would be using natural lighting as much as possible. Like windows are going to be huge. I used to work in an office that had no windows, and I never knew what time it was, even though I had a time, like a clock, because there were no windows. So the time just passed exponentially. But natural lighting and outside has actually been shown to reduce anxiety, depression, mental health issues, because the more we interact with that stuff, our stress levels have been known to go down. Do they have options for lamps? Do we have covers or things that can damper, like the big bright fluorescent lights? Sensory rooms, you have the option to shut some off, or a dimmer switch. Maybe we need to talk about different bulbs. And then just like soft colorings for common spaces, and then allowing the people who live in their rooms to choose the decor and the paint colors. When it comes to smells, textures, temperature. So we have to think about our trauma again, because smells will trigger certain memories, physical responses, behavior. And it could be something that we don't even recognize, because when trauma is processed in our brains, it's stored in fragments. And sometimes those fragments are triggered most strongly by senses. So if we smell something, the olfactory could trigger something else and trigger the trauma. So we don't want anything overpowering. We don't want things that look sterile or having it highly medical. I think we've all walked into nursing homes before, and there's either that urine smell or a very, very, very strong bleach smell. So just thinking about how things smell, and maybe if you need to supplement that with air fresheners or anything. Someone commented about fairy lights. Yeah, so if we can talk about maybe not using the overhead light or having options of lamps, the fairy lights, hanging things that aren't going to be overwhelming or that they like, that's great. So soft textures, so are we having pillows? Are there cushions? Are there blankets? What kind are they? How big are they? Are we washing them? And making sure there's something always available. Maybe we need to find an area that can be more of a break room or offer movement or being able to do walking around. And then temperature, so temperatures can cause distraction or anger. It can also trigger, all kinds of emotions. So there have been studies that shown the ideal temperature for group homes are 68 to 72. And that's obviously going to be subjective and could change based on what clients you have. If you have a more elderly population, warmer is probably better. But then we should also have items available for cooling or heat and blankets or fans to assist with that, because someone's always going to be unhappy with temperatures. So when we think about outdoor settings, not just our indoor, we want to walk up to a place, see a place that creates safe, purposeful, and accessible outdoor areas. So think about your landscaping. Do you have a garden? Do you have views of outside? Are you more in a natural community, or is it, like industrial around you? Can give them a safe place to go? Are you on a busy road? For some folks, which this is doable, you can do a fence in the backyard, or specifically, like memory care homes, they have circulation routes with looping pathways, or that whole area's interest, because we have wanderers, we have people who like to walk in the community, but maybe aren't safe in the community. Well, let's find them an area that is therapeutic, that they can be safe, and we don't have to worry about them. So this really just helps give that sense of community access for certain individuals that maybe don't have actual community access, can't go out on their own, but would prefer to be outside. I have a client who could sit outside all day, every day, and never move. But if she can't be safe, obviously, then, the front porch isn't safe. So we have to think about the safety piece of this again. Again, outdoor spaces, gardens, bushes. This is a picture of a looping pathway out of a memory care home. So now we have to talk about, how do we support? What does the structure of the house look like? Are we repeating things? Do we have consistent expectations? So daily life is organized around routines. And sometimes those routines are client routines, but more often than not, they are surrounded over staff convenience, because staff have certain things they have to get done, which again, I understand you all have a job to do. However, more of what goes on should be focused around clients' routines, because when they are upset, or that schedules dramatically swing day to day instead of consistent routines, that's really hard. So keeping a consistent routine, keeping consistent expectations that are more surrounding and tailored to the people who live there. So we as staff should be modeling, and then we want to show, or we show and act as we want other people to act, and that's that consistent expectation. It also helps them by seeing the skill model, so they know how to do it better. So support also means that the physical space is safe, you're setting expectations and boundaries, and you're consistent on what's allowed and what's not allowed. And this, again, is super flexible throughout all locations about what your rules are, what consistency is. Something common that I see is the type of boundaries and touch between peers to staff. That's very variable between every place I've ever been, but having that clearly defined so that you don't have issues will be beneficial. And then structure, daily scheduled activities that clients have a say in planning. There's consistent meal times, they have choice within the meal times, and then you have free time built in as well, but not too much free time that idle hands will get bored and cause their own excitement. And then consistency, again, boundaries, expectations, that they all know that it's clearly explained and that the limitations and boundaries have been explained and are important to everyone. Again, with that boundaries, if it's okay for one person, then it's okay for everybody. So keep in mind what example you are setting. So if you let one person hug you and maybe another person in the house has inconsistent boundaries or they're inappropriate with a certain set of people, you have to remember the example you are setting. And sometimes we have to alter it despite knowing that some people can handle hugs where others can't. Pets are also a major thing that helps set up a therapeutic environment. And it's pretty unfortunate how group homes are set up and how some people can't have pets, or if there's certain rules around having pets. So pets and other activities or elements that allow for stimulation will help patients' well-being or clients' well-being. So even if a person can't have an animal, but they enjoy animals, giving opportunities for therapy dogs to come in or go to places where they can interact with animals for the few that like that. If someone is responsible for enough for an animal, helping empower them that way to take care of it. I've had clients who have had cats and dogs, or even fish or hamsters or guinea pigs. So again, those are all things that we should consider and maybe make exceptions for in certain situations, or maybe it's a house pet that staff can also help model and care for. So we have gotten to the point of what does a culture of an agency feel and look like? So when you think of your agency, and you don't have to put this in the chat box if you don't want to. I also don't know where most of you are coming from, but what can be improved with your agency? Is your culture good? Is your culture toxic? Are there ways that you could feel more supported that you're not feeling supported? What does your agency actually convey to other people? What about the professionals who come in? Is it conveying something good, or is it conveying something bad? Are you having a hard time retaining staff? Are you having a hard time retaining clients? Do people always leave? You can always pull your staff and clients. You could pull family members and ask for improvements. But I also with that want to say, just because something's always done one way does not mean it's perfect. It probably means it's the easiest way and no one's ever cared to reevaluate. So whenever I think of agencies, I probably swing one way or the other, and I can tell you very quickly what I think. Will I? Probably not. But there are some things within all agencies, whether you're an amazing agency or one that could have lots of improvement, there's always something to work on. And I think that goes for anywhere, doctor's offices, all of it. I mean, like any place you go, there's probably something that can be improved upon, because everybody can change, can add to, can make things better. So keep in mind of reevaluating those things as you go. Okay, so our company has houses in 2 cities. There's a clear division between houses from one city and the houses in the other city. Also a division between our DT centers and our SILAs, even though we are all the same company. So that seems like, you're not one big company. Everything is, you fend for yourself, right? So if you are truly all one agency, it should be pretty easy to collaborate, to come together. And I'm not saying it's not, I don't know you guys. So everyone is a vacuum. Yeah. So I could probably name a couple of places that me personally, in my personal life, that I avoid because there's something about those places or the energy that I get, the feel that I get when I walk into them. So again, you have to think about, people are judging you from the minute you get into the parking lot, before you even get to the parking lot. How easy is it to get there? So, think about these things. Someone commented that they've seen a full range of therapeutic environmental issues. Absolutely. So every agency no agency is going to have the same exact issues, right? And I think the state is trying to get things to be more therapeutic, more home-like. We're trying to get away from institutionalization, which is something that's been a goal for a very long time. And I think we have plenty of room to keep going, but we have to also look into that, and individual agencies can start making differences within it as well, because this is still fairly new of making it less institutional. So why are we building a therapeutic environment, right? Because sometimes it's so much easier just to keep the status quo. But a therapeutic environment is going to increase the ability to feel both physically and emotionally safe. There should hopefully be less staff turnover. It's going to encourage growth and help clients, staff, agencies as a whole take more responsibility. We are going to have happier persons served. So hopefully everyone would be happier because they have more choice and freedom in how things go. There will be a more positive environment. You're not going to be that black cloud. I'm not going to walk into your agency and be like, ooh, this starts top down. Everybody acts the same. So it will also, we want to reduce the environmental stressors because it gives positive distractions. It enables people to be better supported, and it gives everyone a sense of control. So wrapping this all up, what are 5 takeaways from this training? Well, it's going to give choice, or we shall give choice whenever possible. 2, you need to know your clients. You need to talk about trauma. You need to make sure the DSPs, everyone knows, but do that in a very sensitive way. We are going to approach everyone in a way that is not intimidating. It's going to be open. It's going to be honest. It's going to be validating and empathetic. We're going to make sure all staff are trained appropriately. And that means, in my eyes, not throwing somebody in who's never worked in this population before without some level of training or some familiarity to the house they're going to or going to be working in. And then number 5, we're going to set the environment up for success. We are going to do the things that are within our power to hopefully make things easier, happier, more inviting to everyone. And again, these things aren't going to change overnight. There's many things that maybe Qs or DSPs are not able to change because it's not something within your power, but that's why you talk to the people who do have that power, offer solutions and suggestions. And of course, you're going to want to do that in a sensitive, caring way, and know that you will get some pushback, right? Because no one likes to be told that the thing that they've been doing for years, or that's just the way we do it, is or could use some work. Okay, so now is for questions, comments, anything you want. So chat box is open if we have questions. And I think the biggest piece, I know I've talked about the 3 types, but I think knowing a person's trauma, validating, and really setting the environment up to be welcoming and building rapport is the biggest piece that make sure they're safe. And that on top of that, also making sure that you have a really good foundation. So when something bad does happen, or we have to talk to someone about something that's tough, that you have such a rapport built that you can use that to soften some of what's going on. Okay. Well, again, allow 2 weeks for your CEs. They will be emailed to you. And then if you don't get anything or you have questions after that, you can email Anna and she should be able to get that to you or help you, because I have no idea about any of that. I do believe whenever we end this session that there should be specific, like an assessment, I think is what you call it. My brain's a little broken now. That you can fill out. I am very open to feedback on this, as this is the first time it was given. And I created it like maybe a month ago based on a need. So if there's something that you would love to see more of, have questions on, please, 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 I'm open to that feedback. May hurt my feelings if it's mean, but I still need to hear it. Questionnaire was the ACEs. So there's an adult ACEs that is for, you know, if you're an adult, but most of it's based on before you were 18 anyway. So it's pretty easy just to Google ACEs or adverse childhood experiences, and you will find, I mean, so much information on that because it's been researched and, you know, updated throughout the years, but it's all very specific to trauma. Yes, I am being validated with all of the comments that have been in the chat. I very much appreciate it. I do not feel like I am a natural public speaker. In fact, I hate it a lot, but here we are. Okay, Anna, I'm not seeing any questions, so. All right, thanks everybody.